What's going on, New Worlders, and welcome. I am Sir Dryleaf, and today we're going to be talking about a .DPS build, Blister. Now, the goal of this build is to add a sustained damage over time DPS, utilizing effects such as bleed and burn while in combat. Now, I've seen a lot of DPSs tend to run the Great Axe, the Hatchet, the Hammer, even the musket and bow to go for more of a direct approach. Now, a spear could be also included into this, but I also find that the spear also kind of falls into the damage over time category. The fact that it can also apply bleeds to the target. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the weapons. So for this build, we're going to be using the Rapier and the Fire Staff as our main focus on weapons, and both these weapons synergize so perfectly with each other with this kind of playstyle. So for the Rapier, let's break down the skill tree. So the first tree we're going to look at here is Blood, and the first ability we are taking is Tondo, which is our stacking bleed, and the second is Flurry, which is going to be our sustained DPS ability. Now, the beautiful thing about the Blood tree is not only is it going to give us a high uptime of our bleed, it's also going to give us the ability to increase our outgoing damage just by having a bleed on the target itself. Also from the target being above 50%, so we're going to have really nice damage from the get-go of the fight. Now, the second tree in Rapier is the Grace tree. Now, we're only going to be taking one ability from here, which is Fléché, and this ability is going to be our mobility in and out of the fight. But not only is it going to give us that extra bit of movement, but it's also going to give us some really nice damage with potential high crits from flank and backstab. So with all these passives combined and these chosen abilities in the Rapier tree, is going to give us an all-round high sustained DPS, high sustained DPS, mobility, but also resource return and cooldown reduction, overall yielding a really nice DPS towards this build. Now let's go ahead and dive on into the Fire Staff talent trees and talk a little bit how this synergizes with the Rapier. So the first tree we have here is the Fire Mage, and we're only going to be taking one ability from here, which is the Fireball. Now this is going to be an incredibly high hitting ability, but it's also going to leave a burning field on impact, which is going to give us some really nice damage over time burn for a high amount of damage based on your weapon. Now, the passives from this tree itself is going to give us extra mana on hit. It's also going to give us an extra burn whenever we gain a critical hit from a fire ability, which also synergizes with the second tree, which we'll take a look at in a second. But it's also going to give us some extra mana return and damage over time. Now, the second tree that we have with the Fire Staff is the Pyromancer. Now, the Pyromancer is going to be our main tree for abilities, and the two abilities we're going to take from here is Incinerate, and the second is Burnout. Now, Incinerate is going to be one of our main abilities for stacking the burn on the target. As we have to be close to the target, having that mobility from Fléché, from the Rapier, is going to allow us to get in and out of the fight. Also combining that with Burnout, which is another mobility ability, we can go in and out of the fight freely, but still maintain close combat to get the Incinerate stacks on the target. Now, the passives within Pyromancer are quite self-explanatory. The whole point of this tree is to maintain burn duration and add the stacks of burn. Not only are we going to do this from this tree, but Pyromancer also allows us to be a bit more survivable. There is a passive in here called Let It Burn, which is going to give us Fortify, which reduces damage taken whenever the burn ticks. Not only this, but whenever we activate a Fire Staff ability, we gain 20% haste for 5 seconds. This is going to allow us to get further away from the fight or into the fight much quicker. Now, we are going to take the end passive of Pyromancer here, which is called Reheat, and after 5 seconds without activating any ability, our mana regen is increased dramatically, giving us the ability to not have to use pots so much and also retain mana. The combination of all this sustain, mobility and dots, combining these two weapon types together, offers us an absolutely phenomenal blistering DPS. Hey! Pun intended. So what's the next thing that we can look at on this build? Well, of course, it's only going to be the gems and passives that you can start looking at trying to obtain on your gear and also craft to place into your sockets. Now, of course, there's many different gems out there that can be socketed to your weapons and armor to give you resistances against fire, arcane, frost, slash damage, strike damage, etc, etc. What we're going to be focused on here is mainly the weapon gems, as the gems that you can socket into your gear really depend on your kind of preference and what you want in them. Now, the three main gems that I looked at for DPS purposes were the diamond, the emerald, and the opal. Now, the reason why I have chosen these three gems for the weapons is to kind of make sure that you're still maintaining a decent amount of damage output no matter what enemy type you're fighting. Now, New World's system in combat is quite unique, as in not every enemy you're going to face is going to take the same damage from thrust from the rapier or even fire from the fire staff. Some creatures and enemies will actually have a resistance to these weapon types and damage types. So these three gems are going to help you maintain a higher amount of damage even on resistant targets. So first of all, we have diamond. Now, diamond will do X percentage of damage and outgoing healing when you are at full health. So provided your heal is doing a good job and you're not taking too much damage, you will have a permanent uptime on a percentage increase of damage. Now, the emerald is a similar gem where it increases your damage by X amount when the target is below 30% health. Now, this gem focuses very much on the execute phase of a fight, but you get a flat damage for the execute period, meaning that you can burn down a boss when you're in that phase. Now, the last gem, the opal, this gem works similar to the rally, but it increases your damage while you are not full on stamina. Now, with the build that we have, with the blister build, you are going to be dodge rolling here and there quite a bit. But with the sustain and the stamina return that you get from the rapier passives, you're not going to always struggle with stamina, but you're not necessarily going to be full stamina 100% of the time. Personally, I use the emerald, which is the execute gem, but all three of these will work just as good. Now, in terms of passive stats that you want to look at rolling for on the weapons, and for any of you who are wondering what I mean by rolling, when weapons drop, or even armor for that matter, the stats that are on them are random. So what you want to look for is two specific passives that are going to increase your damage overall. The first passive that you want to look out for on your weapon is Keen. Now, Keen increases your crit chance by a flat percentage, and this is going to give you so much more output in not only in your application of your bleeds, but also your burns and your overall burst damage. And the second passive is Enhanced. Now, this increases your light and heavy attack damage by a flat percentage. So now that we've looked at the gems and the passives for the weapons for this build, let's take a look at the attributes. So we're going to be doing a hybrid 50-50 split with 100 points in dexterity and 100 points in intellect. Now, with this split, we're going to get the best of both worlds, increasing the damage not only on our fire staff, but also our rapier. Now, with these flat value set, what we want to start doing is looking at increasing our dexterity to 200 and our intellect to 150. Now, we're going to do this via the gear. There's a couple of ways that I've looked at doing this. Now, going full dexterity constitution on our armor and intellect constitution on our jewelry should yield these results that we're looking for to increase these values to where we need them to be. And of course, on our weapons, we can also go for a split on our weapons if we so choose, to have a dexterity intellect on both the staff and the rapier itself. Having these combinations should help us reach these passive goals and also gain the ideal passives that we are looking for. Now, the reason that we're going for 200 points in dexterity is to get the bonus damage increase to backstab and headshot damage for when we're using the Rapier, giving us much higher hits with backstab power attacks and also backstab crits with the Flèche, even Flurry. Now, with the intellect, the reason why we're pushing 150 points is because we want that flat 20% elemental damage to our fire abilities, increasing our dot damage and overall output DPS. Bearing in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that this build is based on what I have played of it in the high level 30s, but I can safely say that it is going to work at level 60. Of course, the damage is going to be considerably higher than what you've seen in the footage in the background in today's video, but overall it yields and will hold the same exact amount of pressure from your dot and your burst damage. Now, of course, I do plan on making a video for this build at 60 as a follow-up, so please stay tuned for that. But I want to say thank you for checking out this build, and hopefully you enjoy it. So, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, keep on grinding, and I hope to see you in the land of Aetherium. Thanks, guys. Until next time.